Hello and welcome to another in our series of podcasts. We're delighted to have Jen Beattie, Scotland Football International, joining us this week. Jenny has had a tremendous career in football, starting from its early roots at Jordan Hill School, before joining Hamilton Accies Boys Football Club, where she was one of the few girls, if not the only girl playing. One of her earliest achievements was captaining the Glasgow Primary Sevens football team. She was the first girl and indeed the first captain to do so. Her career then moved on to senior level, where she played for Queen's Park before moving on to Celtic. After Celtic, she moved on to Arsenal and then had a brief spell in France, where she played for Montpellier. After Montpellier, she went back to England to play for Man City. Whilst at Man City, she had a brief spell at Melbourne City in Australia before returning to Arsenal in England. During her time playing for the Scottish team, she's amassed an incredible 128 caps. Now, I'm sure Jenny will be quick to tell me if I get any of these statistics wrong, but you've already heard enough from me. So I'm going to start off by asking Jenny what your earliest memories of school PE were.
First of all, thanks for having me on. It's nice to do something different. First memories of PE were sports days, I think. Right early on in primary, when you had to make your seat out of newspapers. So yeah, I remember you had to get mum to stack up loads of newspapers, wrap them in a bin bag, and that was like your seat for sports day. That was like one of my earliest memories, doing like the throwing race and the egg and spoon and all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Was there not a name for that? Atlantis or something? Was there not some name at Jordan Hill School for the kind of crazy obstacle course?
Could have been. That goes beyond my memory, but your memory is better than mine in that sense.
No, have you got no early memories in a football sense at Jordan Hill before it became more formalised in terms of playing for a team?
Yeah, well, my first ever memory was like joining, obviously, besides like the whole school playground stuff and playing like copy doubles and all that stuff with all the boys, and but no, I mean, Sophie McIntyre joined the school football team, must be in the primary like 4 to 7, I want to say, roughly. And we were, I think, remember the Pittacus sisters?
Yep.
They were the first girls to play for the boys team, but then me and Soph kind of followed suit a few years later. And yeah, so like they're one of my earliest memories, was playing with all the boys in the playground and then joining the school football team with Soph.
It's quite interesting that you refer to playground games, because my father and older adults would refer to the days when Scotland had its best male footballers, certainly, and they would play out in the street with a tennis ball against a wall, and how talented they were. And I think that the playground is the place where you certainly generate that enthusiasm and that passion and those skills. And do you think it was an advantage at that point that you were surrounded by boys, given the time?
Yeah, I honestly do think that for any like sort of females development, playing with boys around that age when they're still physically so much better than you, faster, stronger, fitter, like that was such a good challenge for me. Like I loved it. Like it was so competitive as well. Like if you think girls can be competitive, throw them into a boys environment and it's a different ball game. So yeah, I loved it, especially in the playground where you make up your own rules, and it's, you know, if that person owns the football, game was over, they were walking away with their ball. But no, loved it. Competitive environment growing up. It was good fun.
Excellent, good to hear. Did you have any particular childhood heroes in a sports sense growing up? Anyone that you really looked up to, some you thought, yeah, that's what I'd like to be, or somebody that just inspired you when you were younger?
For me, definitely Julie Fleeting was so sort of dominant in terms of female football. She was kind of any sort of Scottish player growing up kind of idolised Julie Fleeting. Like, wow, she's gone to play in America and do things like that, when it was like the first ever, I think, professional league in America. You know, to have a Scottish footballer going out there to play was really cool. Always loved Roger Federer from the tennis scene. Just, he was so calm and composed, and just kind of loved how he sort of presented himself, and he was so dominant for so many years. So he was always class to watch. So I liked him. But so in terms of women's football, Julie Fleeting was up here, you know, head and shoulders above everyone. And then in sort of a world sporting sense, loved Roger Federer, and still do.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think he's one of my sporting heroes in terms of just his whole demeanour. He seems to be totally in control emotionally and mentally. Interestingly, if you read into Roger Federer's history, he was a bit of a psycho as a young tennis player.
Yeah.
One of the worst discipline records. So it just shows you, I think, for young people growing up, that it can be completely controlled, and how important the brain is and the mental side of the game. Because I don't think I've seen him lose his temper in the decades I've watched him now, to the point where it frustrates me. Sometimes think.
Well, I always think the reason why I play team sport is because, like, I can't tell you the amount of rackets I maybe smashed up as a kid, like just from pure competitiveness or whatever it was. But I think it's something he's definitely learned and adapted his game to, which is probably even more remarkable in that sense. It didn't come to him growing up. He had to learn and develop it. So I have huge respect for that.
Quite interesting you mentioned that you smashed up quite a few rackets. So that suggests that football wasn't your only sport. You played other sports growing up.
No, I was quite lucky to obviously go to Jordan Hill and have sort of numerous sports available, and mum and dad were class in that sense, kind of really, really encouraging and supported sort of any sport possible. I mean, and even my friends, I was so lucky to grow up with friends that really liked sport as well. I can remember endless summers out at Jordan Hill Tennis Club till 9-10 o'clock at night, maybe not that late, but playing until the floodlights came on, just playing doubles and having fun and enjoying it. And it was a sense of just, tennis was massive. Obviously hockey, playing for the school. Remember Saturday mornings playing for the school hockey team and then going to play football afterwards. Just having summers filled with sport. And I just loved being in a team environment, playing with friends, keeping fit and healthy. I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it seems to have been a bit of a theme, although we've only had the one podcast gone live so far. If you listen to top sports people, that seems to be quite common, that playing lots of sports adds to the better all-round athlete. And I'm aware that youth clubs now encourage their players to do other sports rather than just be purely focused on football, which is really good to hear and really encouraging. Now, the next question was talking about your first involvement in football, which we've obviously gone on about. So what was there anything in particular that attracted you to football?
I think number one thing was the team aspect. I think, like I've touched on before, I played a bit of tennis, played a bit of golf, but the team aspect of playing football, kind of like hockey and all those sports, I just love being around. I like the social aspect and not having the pressure just on one person. I think in individual sports you can be really in your head, and it can be like very demanding. Even though there's a sense of that in a team sport, I just was always much more attracted to team sports. But football specifically, I don't know. I grew up watching the Premier League, watching Match of the Day. I think at that point Arsenal were in their absolute heyday, sort of the invincible season. I remember like watching Henry every weekend, thinking this guy is just insane. So I think for me, like Johnny, my eldest brother, also played a bit when he was younger, before he obviously moved on to rugby. But so he argues that that's why I have a left foot, is because of him. And
I think you're very fortunate to have siblings with Julie and Johnny and your parents to push you on. I think that can't be underestimated. I read an article the other day that suggested that the majority of top cricket players had older siblings who played cricket, and it was that theory that they played in the back garden and they had somebody to aspire to. So I guess that's something that certainly would have helped. Now, it was clear. I mean, it was certainly clear to me when I didn't have a huge amount of teaching time with you. I worked with you briefly in hockey, but in my role at Jordan, when I worked for Jordan Hill School, I'm pretty sure you were crowned double champion at athletics with 100-meter sprint and shot put at Scottish level. Would that be accurate? Or have I made
Scottish level?
Or maybe Glasgow schools?
I'm definitely I mean, it's still a joke within the family that I did shot put, like, because it seems a million miles away. But I was there. I remember going to like a British tournament for that and coming like sixth. So I don't know where I was for.
Well, I'm pretty sure. See, I remember at the time thinking it was probably quite a unique double, because you tend to not be quick and good at shot put, but you were so physically dominant. I remember at that stage, and it probably wasn't the way your career panned out that big a deal for you, because you literally, I remember, if I'm seeing it right, that you lined up for the 100-meter final, and everyone went into crouch start, and you just stood up. And it was like the same.
Probably I didn't know what I was doing.
You were miles ahead. It was just natural talent, and that was very similar to your hockey. you weren't necessarily orthodox, but you knew how to play the game. You totally understood defence and attack, and you were an asset to the team because of that, even though you're more of a footballing background. So yeah, you obviously had. I wouldn't. There's a strong argument it's not always natural, but for me, you were a very natural athlete. Now, once you got up, when did you realise you were good at football? Now, that's a difficult question to ask somebody because it sounds quite egotistical. But when did you kind of go, I'm way better than my peers here?
I don't know if I ever thought I'm way better than my peer, but I remember being selected for. There were various things that when I look back on, I think, okay, that's cool, like the whole Glasgow captaining the boys team and stuff. But I remember first, so when before football for girls was even at international level, you played for Scottish schools. And I remember getting a phone call. I think I was in the science building. I remember I was in some sort of science class. And I remember having to leave that class because I had a phone, or I'd been given a letter, and it was Mr. Manson that gave me the letter. Remember Mr. Manson?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He gave me the letter to say I'd been selected for like the under-15s Scottish schools. And I remember just burst out crying because I could not believe that I'd got into this team. I just couldn't believe that I'd, out of the whole of Scotland, and that maybe is the reason why I stuck to football, because it was obviously so emotional for me. Any other team, or any other sport, sorry, it didn't really hit me. But this one selection for under 15 Scottish schools, I just remember thinking, wow, like I love this. This is amazing, and I've been selected for this team that's really cool. So that was a huge moment for me. Really realizing the emotional connection that I had with it was huge.
Can you remember who your first youth cap was against?
Youth cap? No, for under 15s.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess Canada.
I don't actually know. I remember for
I have no idea.
Like, it was such an important moment that I remembered mine. I just thought,
Yeah,
jogged your memory. But listen, I didn't get 128 caps, so I could count by 2 or 3 that I got. So it was a bit easier for me. So once you were on the national pathways in terms of junior, moving on to senior football, what did you feel you had to do to realise your potential and not just become a cap, but become a regular cap? What is it that you have stuck by to give you that success and that longevity?
I feel like in terms of even what I do now, I feel like it was the daily things. It was the daily sort of sacrifices that you can kind of make in order to achieve those big sort of long-term goals. I realised that I couldn't go out on a Saturday night, even though every sort of other 16, 17, 18-year-old, that's what they were starting to do. And I can't emphasize enough how lucky I was to have friends that kind of understood that are still my best mates to this day, that kind of understood, okay, let's have a quiet night in on a Friday, and then we can go out on Saturday. Like they could go and do that, whereas I knew I couldn't. So I knew it was those sort of daily sacrifices, going out across the road, running by myself for half an hour, doing the sessions I've been told to do. In those days we didn't have the sort of female academies that you could kind of go and get your training loaded in. So for me, it was doing the daily things right and making the right sacrifices to get somewhere, I guess.
I think I can have total empathy with that. I think you've nailed it in terms of the sacrifices you have to make. I mean, I was flung into senior hockey at quite a young age, and I lost my kind of direct group of friends because they were out drinking, going to cinema, whatever they were doing, and I was traveling the country playing hockey. And I think the sacrifices are key. Do you think those sacrifices? Well, obviously the sacrifices were worth it, but I guess the message I'm trying to get across to young athletes is that to get to where you get is not. We see Premiership footballers and we see the glamour that they live, but it's trying to convey that message to young people that you need to put in the hard work. Would you say that there were times when you doubted where you were going to, and you had to persevere, and you thought, well, is this worth it?
Oh yeah, there's been, I mean, so many. Like when I went out to play for Montpellier, age sort of 22, that was by far the hardest thing I've ever done, was going to play abroad, age 22. I'd done higher French at school, but it still was nowhere near conversational, speaking in a different language, and the coach was in French, everything was in French, and that was by far. Of course, I had moments out there where I thought, can I do this? Like, do I have the right sort of character for this? But yeah, and then on the flip side, growing up sort of a lot younger and it being absolutely chucking it down in Glasgow and going out to the muddy pitches and doing those running sessions that you have to do. But I feel like if you don't, you have to have a sort of love for it. You have to have a love for being out in the pouring rain and mud up to your knees and just think you're either doing it for yourself and that's kind of it. You have a goal, you set it, and then you just go out there and try as hard to achieve it.
Yeah, great. Do you think are you grateful that your path to the top wasn't necessarily smooth and there was road speed bumps along the way? Do you think that I would imagine that will make that resilience and overcoming the resilience you'll have built up will have made you a much stronger person? Would you agree with that, or would you say that you would rather just have had a smooth journey? Do you think the experience in France, for example, whilst it was difficult to begin with, you're now culturally enriched? You know, you've probably picked up a bit of the language, you've probably made connections over there that will last a lifetime. So whilst it was difficult, would you say looking back it was absolutely worth it and they were actually minor in comparison to the end goal?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think everyone, it's a cliche, but everyone needs to push themselves out of a comfort zone and try different things. And I think I genuinely would encourage anyone to try and play abroad because no one knows you. I mean, in this day and age, people might know you with the social media and all that stuff, but you almost have to go out your comfort zone. You know, try different. It's completely different people, different culture, different language, and those things are hard. And people underestimate how hard that is. I think the true sign of really good players is when they can go do that abroad or in a country that different style of football that have to go and improve themselves in a different place. So for me, 100%. Even though I always say it was the hardest thing I've ever done, I would do it again reluctantly, but I would do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely made me the person and player I am today. I would say
It's really good to hear. I think too often, certainly from a coaching and teaching point of view, we can be reluctant to push young people on. And in my experience coaching, not one person I've ever pushed has failed. I mean, you might get the occasional person that goes away from the sport, but those that stick at it have only got better. So it's given young people, I guess, that encouragement that, you know what, it's going to be a wee bit tricky. It might take weeks, it might take months, but you will get there. And interestingly, I was reading in an article that research has shown that people that develop later in sport quite often have a longer and more successful professional career. Now, whilst that's not causation or necessarily a completely positive correlation, just quite interesting to say that you might develop later. And it's a shame because so many young athletes will chuck it because they see their peers overtaking them.
yeah.
I guess that's a message that, you know, stick at it. That's the kind of end of the kind of formal questions, I guess. So thanks for your really in-depth and insightful answers. Now I'm going to try just a wee fun quiz, the Jenny Beattie quiz. Now, I just put together quite quickly because time escaped me, but we'll see what your knowledge is now. Having known you for a number of years, I would imagine you're very, very modest, so probably won't get many of these right. And don't worry, we won't judge you if you do get them right. It doesn't mean you've done it yourself. But the first question is, how many caps have you got for Scotland?
Over 100. I know that because I was obviously given the 100th cap, but I've no idea. Yeah, I don't know.
You're not a cap counter, are you?
No.
Yeah. Come on.
114?
No, keep going.
Is my guess. No. 120?
Up.
125?
Up.
130?
128. Unbelievable.
Okay.
Can you remember who your first senior cap was against?
Yeah, I do. It was against USA in Cyprus. I was age 16 or 17, and I remember that because my mum came across. It was basically a Cyprus tournament against USA. So it was a little bit complicated, but I remember my mum had flown out and she'd gone to the wrong stadium. So she turned up at like halftime at this, so I remember that specifically because mum made it out there, which was really cool.
No, I've not got a great knowledge of women's football. What I do know is it's unrecognisable in the last decade in terms of the standard. It's incredible to watch now. USA, I mean, that is an unbelievably tricky friendly to have. I mean, were they not world champions then? Or they're...
Yeah, I mean, they're thereabout for sure. They've been so dominant in the women's team for, a couple of decades now. So, yeah, they were up there. It was pretty daunting.
What was the damage in the day?
I think we lost 2-1 maybe. Lost 2-1, I think.
Maybe that was because of your impact.
Like that.
So the next question, you reached 100 caps, or sorry, not 100 caps, you reached 100 appearances from Manchester City when you were there.
Yep.
How many other players had achieved that feat before you?
For Man City,
Yep,
obviously.
for Man City, yep.
Okay, I think I could guess this though. So
I
definitely.
can't tell who they were. I can only tell you numbers. But if you could,
Oh, okay.
Feel free to list
Well,
them.
it was definitely Steph Houghton, Jill Scott, Nikita Paris. So I reckon 4.
So
Demi Stokes.
you saying you were the 5th or the 4th to reach 100 caps or 100 appearances?
5th. I reckon Demi.
That is outstanding.
Is it 5?
Jenny Beattie,
Okay.
well done.
Cool.
You have to make these questions more difficult.
That was a good guess.
You scored a fair few international goals. Now, Wikipedia was suggesting 24, but when I tallied it, it said 23. My maths isn't great, but let's just call it 23 or 24 goals, which is pretty outstanding. Okay. I'm not sure how much of your career you played at the back, but I'll tell you, if you're scoring that many goals from the back, I think the coach has a second thought. But scored more than one goal on 2 occasions. Can you remember who against and how many goals?
More than one goal on 2 occasions.
Come on. I mean, one of them was a really big haul.
Off the top of my head, I've absolutely no idea. More than 2 goals on...
More than one goal. So in a game, you scored more than one goal on 2 occasions. You scored 4 against one country and 2 against another.
4 against?
I think Wikipedia might have had a bad day.
Well, no, I've genuinely got no idea.
Well,
Northern Ireland.
There we go. She's away.
Northern Ireland was on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Lockdown Lions haven't gone well for you, Jenny.
Yeah.
4 goals against Northern Ireland. I mean, if I had a goal, I'd be probably writing in social media for a week, and you can't remember 4 for your country. It just shows.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it shows again your modesty. Can you see the ideas in the other 2? Probably not a chance. Put it this way.
No.
Apparently they were very good finishes.
Says who?
It was a clue, Jenny.
Oh, Finland.
Yeah, you scored 2 against.
Gosh, lockdown hasn't been doing well for me.
I think maybe education takes a back seat when you're as good.
Finland, cool.
Yeah, apparently scored 2 against Finland as well. So very, very impressive. Question 4 is, who were your first senior goals for Arsenal scored against? Oh, come on. This is unbelievable how you did this.
What do you mean?
Just in terms, it wasn't just a goal. It was the nature of these goals and when they appeared in a game.
Are you looking for the team against?
Well, yeah.
I have no idea. I've honestly no idea.
You went on, your first goals for Arsenal were against Chelsea. 2-0 down at half time. And you scored a hat-trick.
Did I?
You know,
really?
Quite amazing.
I honestly can't remember.
I think Jenny, you're secretly thinking his Wikipedia page is completely made up. But according to stats, that's when you scored your first senior goals for Arsenal. So pretty remarkable. So well done on that. Now the final question, I know we're just shy of time. This is quite a personal one for me because obviously I coached teams that you played in at Jordan Hill with hockey. And you mentioned Sophie McIntyre earlier, who was she was a key player for the team. She was injured. She had a broken finger. And we were playing in the high school sevens where I now work. And Jordan Hill and high school were enemies. I mean, I wanted to do everything I could to beat the high school. And we got a penalty. Minute to go. Score that, waste some time. We've put high school out of the tournament. Jordan Hill are through. Unbelievable scenes. Sophie, my key player, my dependable players on the pitch, injured off the pitch. It's like, Jenny Beattie. She knows what she's doing. She's got a cool head. So you walk up, you put the ball down, don't make any eye contact with their keeper, and you take your stick back like a golf club and absolutely annihilate the ball into the back.
Well, it. I know.
And unfortunately, you score a cracking goal, but it's disallowed. But I've actually given you the answer to the question was, who was that against? And I don't know if you would have remembered, but it was against the high school of Glasgow.
Yeah, no, I knew because like just like what you said, we were total rivals, and I just remember you had your hands in your head. I looked round and you had your hands in your head, and I thought I had no idea what I'd done wrong. That's the best thing. I had absolutely no idea.
To be honest,
But everyone's
I laughed about it because you didn't know. And as a coach, I'd let you down in terms of I totally backed you mentally because I knew you were such a strong performer. But I actually hadn't. I just made an assumption that you should never do that as a coach. And I still look back on that fondly because that memory for me was greater than us progressing in a tournament.
yeah, it was. Yeah. When you put it into the context, like we didn't get through and stuff, that's obviously was rubbish. But like, yeah, I just never, I'd never seen a penalty flick taken, or well, I don't think I had, or anything. So I just thought, oh, it's just like football, just go smash it and place it. And
I guess the clue was
definitely that is not what you have to do.
I guess the clue was in the word penalty flick. But anyway,
Yeah, you're right.
less than that. Anyway, I think that's us out of time. Thank you for giving up your time to answer questions. I'm sure the pupils at the High School of Glasgow and indeed beyond will really enjoy your answers. All the best for the rest of lockdown. What are the plans for the future? Are you soon to be back at Arsenal training?
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of a waiting game right now, waiting for government restrictions to kind of loosen a little bit, and then yeah, just kind of keep cracking on with our running and gym in the garden and things like that, and then hopefully we can see everyone and train together soon.
Well, all the best. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on you in your future Arsenal and Scotland career. And thank you for your time.
Cool. Thanks for having me.